Welcome to the Early Childhood Data in PowerSchool webinar, hosted by the South Carolina Department of Education. My name is Wendy Burgess from the Office of Early Learning and Literacy. Also hosting today's webinar is Wyatt Cawthron from the Office of Research and Data Analysis. Here is our contact information in case you need any technical support. First, we will begin with an overview of the session. Next, we will talk about the policies and laws that address early childhood in our state and explain why an early childhood data collection is important. Then we will take a look at the PowerSchool Early Childhood page. Lastly, we will provide a link to the South Carolina Department of Education's website where there are resources for providing high-quality data.
Our goals for the session include providing explicit instruction on how to code the fields properly on the updated Early Childhood PowerSchool page. And also we want to support you in order to enable provisions of high quality data regarding the prior learning experience of each child who is assessed using the KRA. Now let's talk a little bit about policies in regard to early childhood. Early childhood education is a major strategic aim of the South Carolina Department of Education. All children must be provided the opportunity to enter school prepared to succeed. All children deserve a quality education in a developmentally appropriate and instructionally sound learning environment with competent and compassionate staff. Such high quality will not occur without appropriate technical assistance and appropriate evaluation of early childhood programs for 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. As mandated by the Education Improvement Act of 1984, also referred to as EIA, the Accountability Act of 1998, the 2007 Child Development Education Pilot Program, and the 2013 legislation to expand CDEP. In addition, we have Act 284, which is part of that legislation, involves the Child Development Education Program, which we now refer to as CERDEP. We will use the CDEP and CERDEP as synonymous acronyms. CERDEP in a public school or a private center is a state-funded, income-based, developmentally appropriate education program adhering to best practice using research-based curriculum and assessment. Such a program must adhere to DS regulations and SCDE guidelines. Other important opportunities for 4K involve EIA 4Ks across the state. Another important policy to keep in mind that is part of the 2018-19 Appropriations Act is Proviso 1A.59. And I have the exact verbiage on this slide so that if you need it for future reference, it is there for you. But I'm going to read it directly to you, so take a special note. For all students assessed with the KRA, the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, the Department of Education is required to collect data from schools and school districts on the prior early learning experience of each student. The data would include whether the kindergartner had attended in the prior school year, and that refers to in their 4K year, a Head Start program, a South Carolina Early Reading Development and Education program in a public school or a private center. Those are what is referred to as CERDEP or First Steps. A half-day 4K program in a public school, a full-day 4K program in a public school, a child care center to include a registered faith-based, registered family home, group home, or exempt provider in an informal child care. We will be going through those specific definitions further into the PowerPoint. So why does the Office of Early Learning and Literacy collect data? We collect this data because it is very important for funding. Funding through various sources provides the necessary money to pay for the services offered to the children in the pre-K classes. But in order for districts to receive the appropriate funding, data must show the counts of students who are actually being served through formal programs that follow strict guidelines. PowerSchool provides the age of the students enrolled in the schools across the state based on the student's date of birth to assist with determining appropriate age requirements. Please keep in mind that you should ensure that data are completely entered by the 45th day of school and updated by the 90th and 135th and 180th days. Inaccurate data may result in the loss of funds. Other important reasons for early childhood data collection are in regards to reporting and accountability. We have to communicate to our General Assembly and the Education Oversight Committee. We are charged with tracking student progress both now and as they continue through their public school career. We also have to monitor and evaluate program effectiveness across the state in the 4K settings.
So what data for PowerSchool? I wanted everyone to be aware of the primary resource for PowerSchool data entry around early childhood students, and that's the PowerSchool Data Entry Manual. There's a hyperlink here on this slide, or else you can search the agency website for that resource and find it there. Alternatively, send me an email and I'll locate it for you. The other data that goes into the purposes that Wendy's noticed are demographic data about the students, the early childhood specific information, that's the fields in the data that's included on the early childhood page. And we also look at attendance, and then for data entry into the early childhood page, Wendy's teams developed a registration form to use to collect that information from parents for entry into PowerSchool. So this is the early childhood page in PowerSchool, and one thing that I definitely wanted everybody to pay attention to is there's generally, or there could be considered two sections of this page. There's a top section and a bottom section, and then below that is below the bottom section is a place to enter dial scores. But the top section is for both pre-K and kindergarten students. So you'll enter data there that corresponds with students enrolled in both pre-K and kindergarten. In the bottom of the page, the part just before the dial 3, dial 4 scores is for entry of pre-kindergarten student data only. So if you have a kindergarten student, you will not fill in this section of the page. And one other thing about the early childhood page in PowerSchool that I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of is this prior child care field right here. When you select a value there, there appears another couple fields where you can select additional values. On the next slide, I've got a video that kind of walks through that process. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over there and then let us know if you have any questions. So you can see when you select public, there's two additional fields that pop up, and when you select private and military, there's a fourth field that pops up. Wendy's going to walk us through all the different drop-down values and what each of those fields mean, but I just wanted everyone to be aware that if you click on that early childhood page and don't see the fields, go ahead and select a value on the prior child care drop-down, and then those other fields will appear. Okay, and again, at the very bottom of that page is a place for the dial scores to be entered. And that's a screener exam that will be administered once. And if you have Cert Up students, you're definitely going to want to fill this section of that page out. Okay, so when you're enrolling a new pre-K student, this is the Enroll New Student screen. Some important values you're going to want to pay attention to is to enter, first of all, a correct date of birth and then a correct enrollment date. Make sure that you enter a full-time equivalency for the student, and enter the appropriate grade level. For Cert Up students, you're going to want to make sure that grade level is PK4. And then the entry code for these students will be E. In previous years, not last year, but in years prior, the entry code value could have been EEI for some early childhood students. Now, across the board, the entry code should be E, regardless if it's a state-funded student, a district-funded, if the parents are paying or whatnot. Code all of them as E. And then when we move over to the demographics page, make sure that you have the names correct, the home address is correct. And then you'll notice about 3/4 of the way down, you'll see a derived age field. Now that's not one you can edit, but it's based on the date of birth. So make sure that that age reflects the true age of a student. It's a good data quality check right there. Here's a close-up of that field. And then when you click on the South Carolina State Information page in PowerSchool for an early childhood student, I've gone through and drawn arrows and circled some stuff to pay attention to. The individual links with arrows are pages that you'll want to fill out information about these students on. And then that circle around the yes, you want to make sure that all these students are marked as yes for include this student in state reporting. Again, in previous years, perhaps that was a no, but starting last year and from every year going forward, it will be a yes. So pay special attention to that one. The EFA EIA classification information page. Now that's one of the links with an arrow that I referred to a minute ago. On this page, you only want to code the VH or the HH if applicable. All the other EFA primary drop-downs, you don't need to worry about coding for the early childhood students because they won't receive additional funding for these for those impairments. If it's something impairment-wise that you need to note about a student, I would assume that's done through the IEP system and not through PowerSchool. The EIA code, make sure your 4-year-olds and your 3-year-olds are marked as a EC3 or an EC4 in that field. And this is on the EIA code entry page. And then on the additional South Carolina student information page, I've put an oval around all the English learner fields. That's where those exist right now. They may be moved to a new page later on in the school year, but regardless of where they're located, you want to make sure these are filled out for your students. And then the 2 arrows on that page are pointing at instructional setting and the Medicaid number. You'll want to make sure those are filled out if they're applicable for students. Moving right along, here's the migrant and foster fields. So if you have any students who are migrant or foster, this is the appropriate place to code them. And then at the bottom, if you're serving Cert Up students, you need to fill out this transportation fields, both the transportation AM and PM fields. This is the homeless student information page. If a student is homeless or served by McKinney-Vento, you want to indicate their primary nighttime residence. The first field right there is the really important one. And again, this is a screenshot of the full early childhood page. And you remember the top part of it I said referred to just pre-K and K students. The bottom part, or actually it looks like the middle here, it should be filled out only for pre-kindergarten students. And the bottom is where you enter the dial scores.
Now let's take a look at the early learning page. This is the full page view, so let's break it down into more readable sections, noting that the upper section pertains to both pre-K4 and 5K students. The first field that you will be coding is the low birth weight question, and remember that all of these pieces are embedded in your registration form that was provided to you back in the early spring, so make sure that you use that registration form when you were going through your data collection process. But the first thing that you're going to code is the low birth weight. You will select yes if the birth weight is below 5.5 pounds and select no if the birth weight is 5.5 pounds or more. The next field is the prior child care field, and this is the one that is new from last year, and this is the one built out through the proviso that was new last year. This is where you're going to code for all of your 5-year-old students who were assessed using the kindergarten readiness assessment. And so you're going to select the descriptor that best describes the last school or child care setting the child attended in 4K before entering the school-based program. Note that in the prior child care, the default is not applicable. So for if some reason there was no indication of what the child care was, this is what you would choose. Or if the child care that was identified did not fall in one of the 3 categories, the public, private, or informal child care. After you select the child care field, if you select public, then you're going to see the 2 drop-down menus for program type and class type. Prior program type selections include the 4 following: unknown, S for Head Start, D for CDEP, and K for Pre-K 4.
You have coded the prior program type. You will move to your right to code prior class type. The prior class type includes the following: unknown, FDS for full day, PDS for partial day, and EDS for extended day. Please note that extended day is for STRDEP classrooms who have served more than a 6.5-hour day.
We included this slide to explain the types of public 4K definitions. We will also attach these definitions in the memo that we send out.
Now let's talk about coding private and military prior child care experiences. Again, you will begin to the left in that line. You will click the R for private or military. You will be sure to move across to the right, selecting a prior provider, a prior program type, as well as a prior class type. We will talk through all of those fields.
If the student's prior child care involved his or her care in a private or military entity, the provider selections are these: unknown, L for military, B for registered faith-based, T for registered family home, G group home, X exempt provider, or O for other private center. We will be going over those definitions in a moment. Then you will code the program type and the class type. We'll talk more about that after the definitions for providers. The first type of private provider includes a military child care center. These are on-post child care centers that typically offer full day or partial day or hourly child care services to military families. There's a link provided at the bottom of this page if you want information regarding where those sites are. Another type of private provider includes faith-based providers. Those are your churches. They typically provide care for 13 or more children. They are sponsored by a religious organization and must be registered. They have the option of being licensed if it operates more than 4 hours a day. And again, if you have questions about whether or not it is a registered faith-based child care facility, you can go to the DSS website at the link provided, and that link will give you that information. The next type of private provider is a registered family home provider. These are basically daycare centers that serve up to 6 children at any given time within the home of the child care provider. It also requires a registrations and a license if the person provides care to one unrelated family or child on a regular basis. And again, you can find those locations at the DSS website at the bottom at www.scchildcare.org. Exempt providers operate fewer than 4 hours a day or fewer than 2 days a week, or care for children from only one unrelated family. They are not inspected by DSS and are monitored only if they volunteer as part of the ABC quality. Again, you can find information about exempt providers at the DSS website at scchildcare.org. Another example of a private child care facility includes group homes, and they provide care for 7 to 12 children in the home of the child care provider. They may care for up to 8 children without an additional caregiver. When attendance reaches 9 or there are more than 3 children under the age of 24 months, an additional caregiver must be present at all times. The next example of a private child care setting is called First Steps, and that is the private sector of the CERDEP program, and it is administered in registered child care facilities, and you can go to scfirststeps.com for information about where those are located. Now let's talk about informal child care. This includes in-home child care such as at home with a parent, family member, or non-family member. After you have selected,
Once you have coded the program type, you will continue to move right across the line and you will identify the class type. Again, the class types that you will see will include unknown, FDS full day, or PDS partial day. If the prior child care involved an informal child care setting, please note that there are no other data values to enter. For the medical care source, you will select the most appropriate medical service used most commonly by the parents or the child. This field is coded for all 4-year-old 4K or any 5-year-old kindergarten children who were not served in public 4K. The default is blank. C, free health clinic. E, emergency room. F, family physician. O, other. The special needs info is a field that is only for 4-year-old or 4K and 5-year-old kindergarten 5K children who were not served as 4-year-olds or whose status may have changed since their year of 4K service. Please select the disability status from the options below. Blank is the default. E, emotional disability. L, learning disability. O, other. P, physical disability. S, speech disability. Please take note that these selections appear to be duplicated in the EFA. These codes differ and data values submitted are not used for EFA funding purposes. The education level of the mom or the female guardian is used to indicate the highest education level attained by the mother or guardian. Select from the choices below. Blank is the default. A, associate degree. B, bachelor's degree. G, GED. H, high school degree. M, master's degree. N, no high school diploma. Or P, for a PhD or doctorate. Next, you will code the years of education for the mom or female guardian. The next field on the early childhood page is the countdown to kindergarten. Please note that this field should only be entered for 5-year-old children for their kindergarten year and indicate whether or not the child received countdown to kindergarten home visits during the summer prior to kindergarten. Blank is the default, Y is for yes, and N for no. Next field on the early childhood page on the top portion of the page is the reason not served in 4K. This was the old qualified at risk. What you will need to do here is select the primary reason. This qualified at risk student was not served in a 4K program. Blank is the default. C means there was not enough classroom space. D means the student did not meet the dial score expectations set forth in the SERDEP guidelines or set forth by district policy if you are putting in your dial scores for your EIA 4K. L, lack of full day service. P, personnel. T, transportation. O, other. First data point for the bottom portion is the early childhood placement. This information needs to be collected each year for all pre-K students. Select the entry that best describes the placement of the child in the early childhood class. A multi-age classroom may be serving a combination of 3, 4, and 5-year-old children. Again, blank is the default. 3 is if the student will be placed in a classroom for 3-year-olds. 4 if the student will be placed in a classroom for 4-year-olds. 5 if the student will be placed in a classroom for 5-year-olds. M, multi-age classroom. And please note that there is a new box in this line. If the student is going to be placed in a SERDEP classroom, you must check the box beside SERDEP. You have indicated the early childhood placement. Now you will have to indicate the class type. You will select whether the pre-K 4 or pre-K 3 student attends school for a partial, half day, or full day. Again, blank is the default. PDS partial day, FDS full day, and note that the EDS for extended day is there for the SERDEP classrooms who have extended their day past a 6.5-hour day. The next field is in regard to Head Start. Here you will indicate whether or not a child was served by Head Start any time from birth through age 4, if the child was served in 4K, or kindergarten if the child was not served in 4K. Do not duplicate the field for the kindergarten year if service was completed when the child was in 4K. Blank is the default, Y for yes, N for no. Now you will identify class curriculum. This field should be entered for all 4K. Indicate which of the recommended early childhood professional development models your school or district has opted to use for the child's classroom. Blank, default, big day, creative curriculum, high scope, investigator, Montessori, world of wonders, or other. Next is the days per week served field. Please indicate the number of days per week the pre-K student is served. Blank is the default, 1 to 3 days, or 4 or more days. The family literacy fields allow us to collect data on whether or not a family or a child was served through family literacy programs. This field should be populated for pre-K students. Code N for none if the family did not participate. Family literacy, by definition, integrates 4 components. Adult literacy, to include adult education, basic literacy, GED, high school diploma, or ESL. Parent education, child development, parent and adult child interactive literacy time. Select the entry that indicates which adult family members of the child have participated in a school district family literacy program. Blank is the default. B, both parents. F, father. G, guardian or grandparent. M, mother. Or N, none. Income range field allows us to collect data on the income ranges of the family. The income range of the family needs to be collected for all 4-year-old 4K children and any 5-year-old kindergarten children who were not served when they were 4. Select the income range level of the family from the choices below. Tuition paid by parent or guardian. In this field, please indicate if the student is attending a pre-K3 or a pre-K4 program where the parents must pay for his or her attending the pre-K public school program by either selecting yes or no.
All right, and the activity coding manual, you can find this on the South Carolina Department of Education website for searching for activity coding manual. And right here we've got the code range of 1750 to 1759 highlighted. And that's just to tell you that the first 4 digits of any activity code for pre-kindergarten students should be in that range. So the pre-K students, if they're in a half-day program, should be coded as 1750. If they're in a full-day program, they should be coded as 1751. And then also I wanted to highlight the data requirements for CERDUP funding. First of all, the students have to have a valid state ID, a valid SUNS ID. If they don't have that, we can't fund them. If they aren't age 4 on or before September 1st of each year, we can't fund those students. If they aren't in a grade level of PK4, the same applies. And the special programs enrollment. Now that's a different PowerSchool page. You'll enter a current year enrollment with a start date of when the student begins being served by a CERDUP program. And the program type will be CDEP 01. Make sure you fill out the transportation AM and PM fields for CERDUP students. And then make sure if you're coding these students as CERDUP that you're in a district that is authorized to provide those services. And then new for this school year is a checkbox on the early childhood page for CERDUP students. Make sure that you have that checked if the student is being served in a CERDUP program. And here is where the special programs page is in PowerSchool. One thing to pay attention to is don't enter an exit date for students on this page unless they transfer or unless they stopped attending school. At the end of the school year, for any students who didn't transfer or stop attending school, you'll enter an exit date for them at that time.
For any issues or questions about data for CERDUP, please contact Wendy Burgess for program-specific questions at wburgess@ed.sc.gov. Also, talk with your PowerSchool administrator. If the PowerSchool administrator cannot answer the question or fix the issue, he or she will enter a ticket with SCDE. If the SCDE cannot fix the problem, Your PowerSchool administrator will be asked to enter a ticket with PowerSchool support. Below, you see the links to the Early Learning and Literacy webpage. You also see a link to the Data webpage. Both of those sites will lead you to the resources that will support you in your PowerSchool coding. Thank you for joining our PowerSchool webinar. We hope that we have provided some helpful information for you as you code your early childhood data. Again, here's our contact information, and feel free to reach out to Wendy or to Wyatt for any questions or technical support.